Okay. So, episode 2, we did some reading, and we came up with a name. The name of the podcast. This is episode 2 of Another One for the Books.
Damn.
Uh,
Another one
yeah,
for the books.
pretty good, I think. We
Yep.
got a logo in progress. For those of you who are watching the video podcast, you can see that I look a little different. My
Mhm.
barber messed my shit up, man. So I just
Getting a
had to
bit too
shave
close.
it all off, and my hair is also very short. So
I'll send you
luckily,
some of my hair if you want.
you have enough. Luckily, hair grows, so we should be okay. And maybe next week, by next week, I'll be looking normal again. But for now, this is what you got. For you audio listeners, it's probably the best way to listen to the podcast right now. Anyways,
Enjoy it while you can, you viewers.
yeah.
You
So
can say
yeah,
that baby face much longer.
we read the first 3 chapters, including the prologue of Elantris. So before we get into it, I just want to ask you, and I'll tell you myself as well. What do you think? What did you think of the first bit of it?
I like the fact that Elantris has remained a mystery. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Anderson doesn't go too much into detail at all
Mm-hmm.
about the city, but he does do a bit of a preamble in the beginning, like a single page prologue of like Elantris, great city, people gifted with the shode, and I'm going to butcher these pronunciations. I know there is a proper way of saying all of these terms, and I'm going to
Yep.
butcher them, and some of them I don't agree with. But then that's neither here nor there. Anyway, so like they go.
Go ahead.
God damn! I already got the hot takes.
Well,
We're
okay.
getting
Just
roasted
before
in
you
the
say anything, I'm pretty sure it's Shayod or something
Shea.
like that, or like, yeah, I think I don't know for sure. I didn't actually look up what the pronunciation. I will. You keep going. I'm gonna
Okay,
actually look up what it. Yeah.
because my understanding was like shade or something like that, or shade. Yeah, you know what? Shade might be fine. So yeah, people gifted with the shade, and then becomes a curse. And then that sort of began Elantris' downfall, and then that's all we get with a bit of a tease, and then we jump right into Raoden. I'm gonna butcher his name, I'm sure.
Raoden.
Raoden, cool.
Yeah.
And then he gets, spoilers, the curse of the Shad,
Mm-hmm.
Shayad.
Shayod.
And then we jump into Sarene or
So yeah,
Sarene.
Sarene, I think is
Sarene.
technically. I was reading it when I was reading through it. I read it as Serene.
That's was my
Yeah,
yeah.
but Sarene, when I looked it up on
Mm.
brandonsanderson.com, is apparently how it's pronounced. So
Well, Sanderson confirmed on Twitter, I guess. I don't know.
yeah, really.
And then we get into Serene's leg of the journey, where
Mm-hmm.
she literally, her and Ash, I think Ash is pronounced Ash,
Yeah.
travel to Arelon, and then we go to Hrathen and his journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
So the
enter
first 3
age.
chapters are introducing us to this cast of characters that we're going to be
Mhm.
exploring, and I think these are the 3 main characters from my understanding of reading the back of the book. Um,
Yes.
these are the 3 that we're going to be going through this journey with. So
That's my understanding too, yeah.
any other initial thoughts?
I mean, if we're gonna we're jumping right into it now, I guess, so we can in
Sure, yeah.
overview of the first 2 chapters, introduction. I think I got the moment I got hooked into the book was when uh Rodion, oh gosh, darn it.
Raoden.
Raoden and Galad stumble across the little beggar kid whose
Mm,
skull was bashed in, and he's like flailing around, moving still, and I was like, oh my god.
yeah, that was a big
Holy
reveal
crap.
for sure.
Yeah.
So I know that we will have one person at least who listens to or watches this podcast, and it's going to be my girlfriend, and she's going to read the book as these episodes are released.
Mhm.
And as I was reading that part, I was like, I don't think she's gonna like this, because she reads like
Ooh.
romance novels and stuff. And when they bash this poor kid's head in, and he doesn't die, and he just lives to live with that pain, that is a pretty messed up thing that happens.
Gruesome. It's
Yeah, pretty
gruesome, and
gruesome.
maybe I'm a sadist or whatever. I don't know, but like that really got my attention. I was like, "Oh my god,
Yeah,
we're going right into it right away." And
shit gets
Sanders,
real.
no hold barred. He's
Yeah,
shit's
yeah, for
got
sure.
real so fast.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. So yeah, a couple of thoughts that I had. So when you watch that intro from Brandon where he talks about, oh, I evolved as an author when I went from Elantris to Mistborn and then again to Stormlight Archive. I don't think the writing's that bad. I think it was really well done, actually. It's very engaging. And he does it reads like a Sanderson book to me. But well, maybe that will change when we get to Mistborn and Stormlight. Maybe my opinion on that will change.
A young
Um,
Sanderson.
young Sanderson, yes. I actually don't know when this book was published. That's something
Oh,
we
well,
should
I
look
got the
up.
book right in front of me.
Yeah, you should let me know.
Okay.
I also like how the first three chapters, like again in sequential order, we got introduced to the main three characters. I thought that was nice,
Hmm.
and also I do like that they're all kind of within the same vicinity. Like uh, Raoden is in, obviously he starts in K, and then now he's in Elantris. Sarene is in K as well, traveling from Teod,
Hmm.
and Hrathen is also in K, but he came from Fjordell or whatever the empire is called. We'll get to that.
Fjordell, I think it's.
Fjorden, something like that. Anyways,
Yeah.
yeah, I thought it was really cool. Again, this is something that I don't know if you noticed, but it's kind of typical to Brandon's books, is that there's a lot of like lore dumping, and they talk about things without telling you what it is. So like they
Oh yeah.
mention, like, I think at the beginning when Raoden gets the Sheod or whatever, and his face gets all pocked with little dark spots, and his hair goes gray. The maid drops her thing and she says like something Domi, and then she grabs a necklace, and he mentions a name, like of the name of the religion. I can't remember what's called, like Karathi or something. And
Mhm.
there's no explanation as to what that is. It's just like as that is mentioned again and again throughout the remaining chapters, then you start to piece together, oh, okay, this is the religion. Domi must be their god or something like that. And I definitely noticed that the most when I read the Stormlight Archive. That one just
Mhm.
like dumps you into the deep end with just throwing names that you have no idea what they mean, and you figure it out later. And that's a little bit of that is present in this book, and I do like that because it rewards the reader when
Mhm.
you're going through it. Um, yeah, you find it out on yourself. You discover the world as you read, which I thought was great.
Yep.
Um,
Uh,
Go ahead.
oh, so jumping back on the tangent, 2005, the Elantris book when it was published.
Oh, really? Okay.
So
I
yeah.
mean,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm old. I feel like 2005 wasn't that long ago, but it actually is quite a while ago.
Yeah. I mean, it's when all the Yu-Gi-Oh cards and Beyblades came out
That's
for all you.
right. Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh! I remember
Oh my
going
god.
with a friend of mine who he was like, how old was he? He was like 25 or 26, and he went to a
Whoa.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournament and got his ass kicked by a 12-year-old. It was great.
It's probably me.
It might have been.
Oh god. Oh man. Anyway.
Anyways, so the last point that I have here, just sort of
Yeah.
like general notes before we dive into what actually went down in this chapter or in these three
Mm.
chapters, was that there's a lot of religious stuff, and that is
Oh
something
yeah.
also that is prevalent through a lot of Sanderson's work. Religion plays a big role in a lot of these stories. It doesn't feel like so far it's played as big a role as it has in others, but obviously that role of the religion in this book could expand greatly as we go through it. And it's mostly in Rothen's chapter,
Yeah.
obviously, because he's a priest.
That's gonna be
Um,
the biggest, I think, mark for the religious aspect of it is whenever Hrathen shows up, he's always gonna be preaching about his own. If I recall correctly, Dorothi. Check my
yeah,
notes here. Yeah,
Darathi.
Dorothi.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's his
faith.
faith. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So, um, yeah, I don't see that off. I mean, for Raiden and Sarene, I think they just drop religious.
Hmm.
I want to say uh, profanity because they don't like. Instead of saying "Oh my God," they say "Domi" or something,
Yeah,
right? Something
Eidos
like that.
Domi or
He
something
does,
like that.
you know. Whereas Hrathen will definitely play that role.
Hmm.
I mean, back to your take on like the lore drops, not really
Hmm.
explaining lore because that's so tedious and
Hmm.
you know,
Agreed.
hurtful to my brain to be like, oh yes, when he mentions Sulu, that means buddy in his
Yeah, yeah.
language in this empire. And this empire, I just do not care. Like he
Right.
says Sulu, and you, the reader, are like, what does that mean? And then you get to piece it again. This is when, like you said, like, oh, the different characters mention the things that it's in their universe, and not Sanders doesn't explain it at all. He just piece it together. It's
Yeah.
great to be able to piece it together, the dialogue that Galadon, because Galadon's saying it's Raoden
Yep.
when you first meet. It's like just Galadon's like native tongue of him saying his own words or
Yeah. Yeah, for
components,
sure.
or lexicon, I guess, is showing through from his background.
Yeah.
And then Rodion has or speaks some of the language too, so he's able to respond to Galadon in his tongue, and it
Hmm.
was yeah.
Yeah,
So I like that. It was really good.
all of it comes together to just sort of flesh out like a well-built world, right? Like this is
Mhm.
just like in our world, there's these, different dialects all around the world, and people switch in and out of their languages and use certain phrases from theirs and when speaking other ones. So yeah, I thought it's just a really cool way to do it. And again, that sort of thing, I think the pronunciation might be wrong, but I think it's Sewell. I'm not sure what he calls him, as which means friend. It's Sule. I don't know if that's right though.
I
The
thought it was like
pronunciation could be different.
Sule,
It could be
but again,
Sule. Yeah.
yeah.
But things like that are also through in a few other Sanderson books, which we will get to eventually.
Gasp! Color me shocked.
Yeah. So yeah, let's dive into it. Unless you have any other opening thoughts.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So the prologue of Elantris. This is where we basically do get like a little bit of background into the city. They mention that even the stones glow with light, which is um, made me wonder about some things that glowing stones play into
Mhm.
other Cosmere books. I won't talk about it too
Oh,
much,
really?
but
Okay. My take was that it was just like Elantris is such a beautiful city that even like the least impressive component, like the city walls, are also fantastic or something
yeah,
like
I
that.
think I might be reaching when I'm trying to make that connection.
Mm,
But it's something that I noted. They could be like they could also just be like maybe they have chandeliers with diamonds in them or something, and those glow. When they say stones
the
glowing, right? It could be some sort of transparent stone.
the
Anyways,
golden roads to El Dorado or whatever.
yeah, something like that. Yeah. So the city was occupied by these immortal godlike beings. They had white skin and metallic silver, or sorry, white hair, metallic
Hmm.
silver skin, and they could do magic. But yet we don't have anything yet about what the magic system of the world is like.
Is it
And
straight from Sanderson from what you told me? Where they have
yes,
we has different magic systems for different realms.
yeah. So
Okay.
each excuse me, each world in the Cosmere has a different magic system.
There we go. My
There
camera
we
is going to
go.
give people God ray vision when they watch the
Oh, you were
video.
closing the thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Um,
proceed. Sorry.
yeah,
Hope
sorry.
the
So
Discord
we
doesn't
were,
throw a fit again.
yeah, we had a little bit of a technical difficulty there. If we dealt with it properly in post, you wouldn't have seen anything except for that Alex's curtain is now closed.
And
Anyways,
scene.
yeah. um, so yeah, we were talking about the magic system. Again, we don't know what it is. We just know that the people of Elantris could do magic.
Mm.
That's when we get the mention of the Sheod or whatever it's called. It usually comes at night. So that's something to note. Like, why does that happen? What about night, uh, causes this to occur? That's something that might come into play later.
Oh,
Um,
is that a
and
spoiler? Oh, that's you
no,
like
no.
guessing.
Yeah, that's me guessing. They mention
Okay.
in this prologue that
Mm.
at nighttime is when they get afflicted by this thing, and
Eh,
then after that happens, they move to Elantris. They're moved to
mm.
Elantris. We don't know why. Maybe they're become religious figures or something like that. It's hard to say. And
They kind
then
of spoiled it a bit because, well, they didn't. The reason was that like, oh, to become scholarly and to be wise or
do they
something like
say
that.
that?
Yeah, in the prologue.
Oh, okay,
I mean,
shit.
it's like one
I
or
might have
two
missed it.
things,
Yeah, yeah. I could have totally missed it, but
but
that
like, it
that
doesn't.
makes
It
sense.
doesn't acknowledge the fact that like, oh, when they get the Shayad, do they become wise and knowledgeable? It's like, oh, I think it's just because they have to learn how to master their powers, so they have to go to Elantris to do
Right.
so,
Yeah. They're
to
like
learn
they
how to
become
control it.
powerful. They're essentially become like the gods of this
Mm,
world. Um
yeah,
so maybe yeah, they go there to learn and to get better or
yeah.
learn how to use their powers.
Mhm. Because you mentioned that it comes at night, the Shayad,
Yeah.
to people getting afflicted by it.
Hmm.
Um, but it doesn't matter who it is, right? It
No.
doesn't
Yeah, it
matter
could be
about
anyone.
lineage of blood or rank or
Yep.
socioeconomic status. It's just anyone can
Yep.
have it, and it's
Happens to anyone.
totally random.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, anyone from any walk of life.
Mm.
And the ending of the prologue talks about how it all came to an end 10
Uh,
years ago.
uh.
And that is probably going to be one of the giant mysteries that gets solved
Oh, I love
in
that.
this
I love
story.
me a good mystery.
It was a nice
My way
cliffhanger.
gets me into it. I'm like, ooh, I
Yeah.
want to know more about Elantris.
Ooh, a hook.
Oh, you got me
Yeah.
there, Sanderson. So it's a
Okay.
bit of a monkey's paw right now. You got too
Absolutely
much
it
what you
is.
wish for.
Yeah. So chapter 1 is our introduction to Raoden.
Hmm.
One thing I did note throughout all of these chapters is at the beginning of them, generally the like shadow of Elantris looms large in each chapter.
Mm.
So in Raod's, Sarene's, and in
Rock.
Hrathen's,
Mm.
there's a little sort of thing at the beginning of the chapter where they say they talk about the scale of the walls of Elantris and how it casts shadows over things, and it's just it's always there, and it's like this
Hmm.
ever present thing in the background, or in Raoden's case,
His new
in
home.
its new home. Yeah. So let's get into it.
Yeah.
So yeah, he is. We learned that he lives in a city called K, which is,
Hmm.
I believe, to the west of Elantris.
Do you have a map?
I do, yeah.
Can
So
we take a look at that? And
yeah, let's take a look at that. So let me just pull that up.
if I
So
recall correctly,
unfortunately
it's
for, oh, sorry, go ahead.
oh, go ahead.
Okay.
No, in fact, K, I think if I recall correctly, is like literally outside Elantris, or it's like it's
Yes.
grown big enough to like reach the front parts of the walls.
Yeah, it like really just borders it.
Because it was a
So
harbor town before. Well,
yes, it
yeah,
is. Yeah, a
I
harbor
think I
town.
mentioned in
Yeah.
Hrathen's chapter 3. Yeah.
Yep. So there are people who will probably just be listening to this, so unfortunately you won't be able to see the map, but the map is in the book. We are looking at the map from the book, but it's just nice to get a reference.
I'll
Um,
mention the page. So go
yeah,
ahead.
please do. That'd be great. So
Uh,
yeah, you can see in this one that to the west, there is no legend on this map, but I assume that it's north is up. To the west of Elantris is the town of Kay. It's separated by a river. This river flows through and goes into the ocean. So that's we do hear about that the K is a strategic place, and there's a reason for that, which we
mm.
will get into in Sarene's chapter.
And the map is just for the prologue. Doesn't really
Mhm.
have a page, but the
Oh, right, it's before the prologue. Yeah,
prologue. Yeah. Sorry.
that's okay. No worries. I mean, if you have the book, you should be able to see it. It's pretty prevalent.
Yeah, and it's the
Um,
same map that's in the book that what Mike's showing.
yes, that's what we were looking at exactly. Yeah, it is nice while you're reading though to flip back to those maps and to know where the
Mm.
characters are, where they're coming from. That stuff kind of is pretty helpful.
Yeah.
So yeah, he awakens in the morning, and this is when we hear about how the high walls of Elantris loom large and over this neighboring city of Kay. He
Hmm.
wakes up and he's very hungry, which he notes isn't normal for him. And he tries to get a servant to give him food. I think he tries a couple times, if I remember.
He
Um,
rings a few times,
yeah,
but uh, like you said, and spoilers, we'll get to the chapter. I think it's just like out of like sheer necessity of being fed. He's like, oh, why aren't they coming faster or whatever?
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So eventually a maid comes. She opens the door and exclaims, "Merciful Domi," is what I have in my notes. So Domi must be the god of the religion of this. And yeah, she's just like shocked, and she grabs a pendant, which which he mentions in the book is Karathi. So we do find out later that Karathi is the religion. Domi is likely the deity of that religion,
Mm.
and there is another religion which is all from the Empire's side. So Raoden, I think he you know, pushes down some tables and stuff to try to get to a mirror because obviously she screamed at him, and he's like, "Oh, what's going on?" And he looks. He sees that his hair is now this limp gray, and his face is covered in dark patches. So this is what the Sheo does now. It doesn't turn him into a god. It's almost like, it sounds like it's incomplete transformation. Like whatever was
Mm.
doing the transformations before has run out of power, or it's still happening but it's just not able to happen completely. And maybe this is
Mm.
me speculating, but maybe this is a, a transitionary state between the full transformation.
Okay.
um that's what it sounds like to me. It sounds, yeah, like I said, it sounds like they just couldn't get the full transformation done. But I'm just spitballing here. I could be completely wrong.
I
Um,
think
go ahead.
my understanding is more like uh, something must have happened during Elantris's height of its power that they kind of tried to fiddle with this Shayad a bit, and then they cursed
Corrupted
themselves
it.
with it, corrupted it somehow, and so
Mm-hmm.
it's just botched.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not like a halfway transition. Maybe it's just like a totally different state where, you have the worst of being an eternal life or having eternal life where you can't heal from anything.
Mm-hmm.
You will always feel pain, and we'll jump into that right away because,
Yeah. We'll be getting there shortly.
as
But yeah,
Raoden
and
mentioned,
they
yeah,
don't get any of the benefits. Like
exactly, yeah.
you get the benefit of eternal life, but you don't get the benefit of being able to do magic, maybe, or
Yeah,
being able to like have nice shiny skin and bright hair.
I mean that's not the reason why you want to have the Shayad.
I mean,
It's
I
not.
don't know.
It's
I
not
would. I think that'd be pretty
skin
dope.
deep, man. You want to
And
be? I want to be. I want to shine in the sun like that.
I just want to twinkle
Uh,
and have nice hair. That's all I want. I don't know. Anyways, yeah,
all right.
so now Raoden, it just skips right to Raoden being sent into Elantris.
Yeah.
They talk about the gates closing behind him, and he has a little basket. It's got his little his little welcome to the
Unceremoniously
afterlife.
dumped in there.
Yeah.
With
Welcome
some
to the
bread.
afterlife gift basket that he gets
Oh
to take with
God.
him, full
Oh
of bread
man.
and wine and little
Uh,
pieces of dried meat.
we
Thought
should
it was
mention
cute.
that Raiden is a prince.
Yes, yeah, Raoden is
We should
the.
mention that.
You're right. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Raoden is the prince of K, the prince of Arelon.
Yes.
K is the what is it called? The capital
Yep.
of
The
Arelon,
new capital, because
the new
Elantris was
capital.
before.
Yes, that's right. Is that right? Was Elantris the capital?
That was my understanding.
You could be right. I don't know. Yeah.
I think it is because K became the de facto capital, and it grew so large
Mm,
to
okay.
accommodate the new trade.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was like we'll jump into like chapter 3 or 2 where they
Yeah.
discuss like the
Yeah.
mercantile sector.
There's a big lore dump in chapter 2
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
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 we'll
yeah.
be getting to that. Okay, so yeah, so one thing I noted just throughout reading all of this, and I
Hmm.
don't know if you're familiar with this set of games or if any of the listeners are, but Dark Souls, that's the vibe I got from this city, is that it's like a Dark
Uh,
Souls city. Like there's these, kind
yeah.
of dregs, like husks of people just sort of walking around.
Mhm.
Everything is sort of disheveled and filthy. That's what I have in my mind when I'm reading
The
this.
Soulless. What are they called?
Yeah, they're called. Well, it might be Soulless.
I
Yeah,
don't.
or
It's been a while.
there is a name for it, but it's yeah,
Mm.
it's also been a while since I've played Dark Souls. Anyways, that's what I got from it.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, like we said, he has his little welcome basket, and they mention how like it stinks really bad there. He comes across, so this is when he comes across the quote unquote old man, but when he gets a closer look, that turns out to be a boy that he
Yeah.
thinks is only 16. The boy like extends his hand, I think, and says food, or
They said I have some more.
yeah, does the Oliver twist.
Hmm.
And they also mention how like his he was so exhausted, like he was putting his arm up and it made him exhausted, so he had to put his arm down, like he couldn't hold his arm up anymore for the
Yeah.
food. um Raoden does offer him bread,
Hmm.
uh and as he walks away, he hears like a kerfuffle, and he sees, I think, a group of like 4 or 5 other of these soulless, or also people afflicted by the Sheod,
Hmm.
who are trying to steal the bread from the kid, and eventually
Which they
one of
do.
them, which they do, and eventually one of them gets a little upset and just uses a cudgel to hit the kid in the head, and the kid's just laying there, and then they take the bread, and then they all turn to Raoden and see him, and he's like, "Oh crap,
Peace out.
yeah, I'm out of here."
But they don't
Uh,
hit the kid on the head like we said in the beginning. They freaking cave his skull in. Oh
yeah,
my god, it's
it's really
crazy.
bad. Yeah,
Ugh.
pretty
Oof.
intense.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, Raoden's like, "Holy shit, I gotta get out of here," and he he makes a break for it. As he's running, he actually throws his basket at this group of people, and they
Yeah.
stop chasing him. They start rummaging through the basket and fighting each other for stuff until one of them finds some wine, and he kind of like exclaims about the wine. Like, well, I don't think he says anything like, that we can
He gets excited
understand.
about it.
He just
Yeah.
gets really excited about it, which lets the other ones realize what he found, and then another chase breaks out because they're chasing him down for the wine, and then they're all gone. And this is when we meet Galadon. We don't know his
Mm.
name in the beginning, but he meets a man and he calls him Sul or Sule. Um, Later on, we do find out that this means friend. And it's noted that this man is of a different race. So his skin is, while it still has the, black splotches, his skin underneath is brown.
Mm.
And it's not like that of people from Arelon.
Mm.
And we learn that this is when we learn his name is Galadon, and that he's from a different realm called Duladel. That's at least how I'm going to say it. It might be pronounced differently.
Mm.
Um, and we also get a little bit about the Empire, I think, here, and how it's taken over most of the world. Duladel is one of the ones that has sort of not, or at least at I think Galadon doesn't think that it's been taken over yet. I think we find out later that it has, but I'm not entirely sure. They do talk about Duladel comes up a few times. It comes up actually in chapter 2 and in chapter 3.
Mm.
And I think at some point they mention the fall of Duladel. So we do get an explanation about Galadon and how he's afflicted by the Sheod, because as far as Raoden knows, the Sheod only affects people from Arelon. So when he sees someone with darker skin who has been affected by this, he's like, "Oh, that's weird." But we learn that Duladel is a place of mixed blood.
Yeah.
There are people from Arelon there. There are people from Fjordell there, which is the Empire, and there are people from Teod there. I think he calls them Teo, and he calls the people from Arelon Arlene or something like that. I can't remember
Yeah.
exactly how it's written. Um,
It makes sense that Arelon and Fjorden citizens go to Dilladale, but then Teod mixes in as well. That's like literally across the ocean.
it is. So
Do they
I
just
don't
wander
actually
in?
know where that is. So actually, you know what? We do have another map.
Yeah.
Let me just switch this over. I
I mean,
found a
in this
few
map
maps.
here, the
This
map
one.
has an arrow that's pointing up
Yeah, so
to
we can
say
see
Teod.
Duladel right here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's right south of Arelon. Again, if
Hmm.
you're listening to this, unfortunately, I'll try to describe it. So Arelon is on the eastern side of the map, and almost the entire western side of the map is the Fjorden Empire. And we can see here that Duladel actually is the same color, so it looks like Duladel did fall at some point. And then you're right, Teod is to the north across the sea.
Mm.
So it's interesting that people from Teod, Arelon also go to Duladel.
I wonder if
But
Dilladale had like I don't know, like an exodus of, or other countries had an exodus to get to Dilladale, or I have
possibly,
no idea.
yeah, it could have been one of like the last strongholds of non-empire um, countries, just like Arelon and Teod. We do also
Mm.
learn, I think it's in Sarene's chapter, it could be in Hrathen's, that the people of Teod and Arelon are the same, like the same race, I guess, and they also have the same faith. So that's
Yeah.
something to note. Anyways, so continuing on, this is when Raoden noticed that he has a splinter in his toe, and this is when we get the whole exposition as to how what his affliction actually is. So he
Mm.
cannot die. Um, Anyone with the front who's been afflicted by the Sheod cannot die, but they also don't heal. So when you feel the pain from the splinter, that pain never goes away. You just
Yeah.
live with the pain, and then he starts to realize, and I think any of us would make that realization. Oh, this is why people go insane here. Like if
Yeah.
you had to live with that pain for all of your life for eternity, like that would drive someone crazy.
And that's,
Um,
yeah, so they become more like animals at that, or not animals per se, but just more like husks of what they were.
yeah.
Because they just, I think there's a few moments in chapter 1 where Rodion is just like walking past people, or like further down the line, they just like repeat the same words over and over again to like cope
hmm
or whatever.
Right.
And they
Yeah.
just,
Almost like a
yeah,
mantra.
yeah, like a mantra. It's crazy.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
is super crazy.
And then Rodion makes a comment of Galadon's like, "Oh, how long you been here, and why are you keeping yourself sane?"
Yeah, that's true. And does
Yeah.
he what do you remember what the answer is?
I think he says like he's just being careful and
Yeah,
like
that's
not
right.
getting in
Yeah, it's
trouble.
like he does you're right. That did jog my memory.
Yeah.
He's trying to be like really careful and not get himself
Mhm.
too hurt. So he definitely knows a lot about what's going on.
He knows a bit too much, I feel like.
Yeah.
And so I did read ahead a bit,
Uh-huh.
uh,
Don't
and I didn't
spoil
read
it.
too far,
Don't spoil it.
but I think there's more to Galadon than we realize. So
Yeah, I think
I'm just
I
saying.
got that vibe too, for
Okay.
sure.
Um,
So yeah, this is so the fact that they can't die, it could be a
mhm,
leftover of this godhood, like we're talking about. The transformation can't do the whole thing, so you're getting some of it, but not all of it.
mhm.
Um, we learn so this is where it was solidified for me that Karathi was the religion. I mean, it's obvious when I read back the prologue, but it for me, like as I was going through this, I wanted to. So like I read it all without taking any notes, the first three
Mm,
chapters, and then I went through them again a little bit more slowly, taking notes. So this for me is when it clicked on my first read through.
mm.
Um, and yeah, Raoden also realizes that he doesn't have a heartbeat.
Yep.
And Galadon is like, "Yeah, that's because you're dead." And I think he says he ends the sentence with "Colo." He's like, "Yeah, you're dead, Colo." And
Like idiot, I think is what
I
it's trying
think
to
it means
say.
like, "Do you understand?" I think it's like a confirmation. That's my
Oh.
understanding. Like,
Mm.
yeah, that's what. But you're right. It could be. It could also mean idiot.
He also says like Kayana, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I think you're right.
Let me
Yeah.
check.
So yeah, while you're checking, they do talk about how people from Elantris can die. Galadon says that you could die maybe from getting your head cut off or from getting burned, but also they don't know. So maybe you will get burned and you will just live like in the ether, constantly feeling the pain that you
Mm.
felt when you were burned to quote unquote death. So they're erring on the side of caution in that they're not going to kill the kid, and they're going to try and, obviously stay alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find it. Where does he say it?
It sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was like the second last page.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Hey, I'll keep going. Let me know if you find it.
Mm, it doesn't
So,
really matter. It's just like
yeah, fair
it's
enough.
fine. Whatever.
Yeah. So this is when they then make a bargain. So
Yes.
Raoden, this actually shows a little bit about how Raoden is he's a thinker. Like he needs he's still, we don't really know much about him, but what we do know is that he's trying to find his own way to survive here.
Mhm.
And for him, that is striking this deal with Galadon. So he pulls out, he stashed a piece of dried meat, um, and he strikes a deal with Galadon to show him around Elantris so he can learn more about it. So that I imagine the next chapter or a few chapters that we get with Raoden will be Galadon and Raoden exploring Elantris, and we'll get a lot more information about what the city is like.
No spoilers.
No spoilers. And this is also when we learn that the word Sul or Sule means friend.
Yep.
So Raoden obviously knows a little bit of different languages. He probably would, considering he's a prince, and he would have to, talk with other nations.
It would make
And
sense.
I think they land on 20 days. At first, he wants 30, but they land on
They
20.
land on 30, I
Do they
think.
land on 30?
Yeah, they land
Okay,
on
yeah,
30.
I could be wrong. But obviously, Galadon is extremely hungry. So when he starts to even mention food, like Galadon is, his eyes widen and he's like, "Oh my god, yeah, I want
Uh,
to eat."
okay, so I found the Kayana bit,
Okay.
and that's when they're discussing about 20 to 30 days.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So the way I see it, Raoden says, moving to tuck the meat back in his sash, the only food that ever enters his place arrives with the newcomers. One
That's
must get
right.
pretty hungry with so few offerings and so many mouths to feed. So Raoden is like taunting him, like, "Hey,
Yeah.
you hungry? Everyone's gonna be hungry."
I got meat.
One would think hunger would almost be maddening, and Galadon, you know, the hint of his former intensity showing 20 days. 30, Galadon. If you won't help me, someone else will.
Mm,
Galmon ground his teeth for a moment. Rulo, he muttered. I think it's like a swear word or something, or
yeah.
like damn or whatever.
Yeah.
Then
Could
held at
be.
his hand. 30 days. Fortunately, I wasn't planning on extended trips during the next month. So Galadon is a bit of a bit of a
Jokester.
funny guy, bit of a
Yeah.
jokester, yeah. I love this guy already. So Kayana is, yeah, so Roden says, 30 days. For 30 days, you will show me around and tell me what you know. 30 days? Sule, you're Kayana, which I think it means crazy or something.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah,
Oh, and
that's
for those who, I guess we should like,
yeah. Give the
if you're
page
reading
numbers.
passages, yeah.
Yeah,
So it's page 14,
it's at the end of chapter 1. I think is when this bargain is
pretty much.
struck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so on to the next chapter, chapter 2. This is the one where we get a lot of lore dumps, so I have actually quite a few notes for this one.
Do you want to know what I named this chapter?
What?
Spicy Princess gets upset that her Tinder date was catfish in the worst way possible.
I don't know if you could call that a catfish.
Well, seeing how her new parents are like shushing how Prince Jordan passed away, quote
Yeah,
unquote, like
yeah,
dumped into Elantris.
yeah.
It feels a bit like a catfishing scheme, but they're not unintentionally doing
Unintentional
so.
catfish.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's actually a great name for that chapter. So yeah, this one is a lot of lore dumps.
Mm-hmm.
We get introduced to, when I was reading the book, I called her Sarene. But when I looked up on brandonsanderson.com, the pronunciation guide for Elantris, which we'll put in the show notes, and Sam will put the links to all of the maps and stuff that we're referencing in this episode in the show notes. It is Sarene, which is very weird for me to read. Anyway, so she is coming from Teod to Arelon, and actually I think Arelon is pronounced differently. Let me just see right here. It's
Raylone.
Arelon.
Raylone, yeah.
Yeah, see that I would have never got the loan part. I would always say lawn. Anyways, so he's going to Arelon. And we find out that she is to be married to Raoden.
Yes.
And the funniest thing I found in this chapter, which I really liked, was her companion named Ash, who is essentially just a melon-sized ball of light that hovers around her. I thought that was super cute.
Funny?
I don't know, I just thought it was super cute.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, she's got this little like companion that just like floats around, and I don't know if it can interact with things, but it's just like, her little funny ball of light.
I don't know if you're right. I don't know if it does interact with things. It reminds me a lot of like the drones in the culture novels where they're following culture agents around.
Oh, okay.
They're just like giving exposition of like, oh yeah, or well, the drones actually do a lot. Some of them do a lot more than just spout exposition and tell the agent like, hey, dumbass, you can't just go about doing that.
Right.
Because they have New York accents. I forgot.
Oh, that's
probably
cool.
have Scottish ones because Banks is anyway. Getting too much into the weeds. Ash is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
But in the end of the chapter, Ash like turns into like a communicative device between. I'm gonna say Serena.
Serene.
No.
Say whatever you want. He does turn into a communication device to be used with her father. But that's at the end of the chapter. So Ash talks about the marriage contract. Apparently in the contract, if one of the parties dies before the marriage is still technically carried out. There's just one of the parties is missing. So she is still married to Raoden. She's just a widow now. And part of that is that her father is now the king of the king of Arelon.
Her new father.
Her new father. Yeah. Her father-in-law is her new father now. Anyways, she crossed the Sea of Fjorden, so it's obviously named after the empire from Teod. Arelon and Teod, whatever, are the only two countries now that are not part of the empire. We find that out though more in Hrathen's chapter. So an attendant comes and informs her that Raoden's passed away, and from the beginning, Ash is a little, what's the word? Suspicious of this whole thing, because she's been contacting Raoden via letters and via Ash, which we learn the name is Seon or a Sion. I don't know if that's like in the books, it's not capitalized, the word, so I don't know if it's a race or something. It's usually I think those things would be capitalized. So I don't really know what this ball represents, and I wonder if it's going to play a bigger role, and if it's going to be part of the magic system or something. I'm very intrigued by Ash. Anyways, so Sarene tells this person, Keetle, the attendant, that she wants to see the casket. But Keetle's trying to like hurry her up. She's like, "Oh, the king's waiting for you." And
Trying to,
I think she's like,
distract her away from it, which makes it worse because Serena's like,
"Exactly.
"Ooh,
Yeah. Oh,
tell
really?
me more."
Yeah. Where do you want me
Yeah.
to go?"
Uh-huh.
So then she's
There,
just
right
like,
there. Let's go.
"Okay, well, I guess the king can wait." And she's just gonna go see the casket anyways. So
Yeah.
she goes to see the casket,
Hmm.
and she asks if she can see the body, but they're like, "No."
It's a quote unquote funeral, quote unquote,
Yes.
where
Yeah.
they have a
It's a
priest
tent. It's
there.
a funeral
It's a
tent.
tent. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
it again, like you said, she feels more suspicious because, there's no one really there grieving at all, not
mhm.
even the king and queen, because they're
Yeah.
still in the castle.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's just a casket, and I think it's like surrounded by a circle of guards.
Mm,
Um, so yes, they won't let her see the body because they say that his disease was disfiguring, and we learned that the cover that they gave for him was the coughing shivers.
yeah.
That's what he technically died of. So yeah, this is when like in the beginning, Serene's suspicious, and now she starts to get really suspicious. She's like, "What's going on?" She talks about how the
Mm,
king is still holding court, even though his son died like just like yesterday, or I don't know what the timeline is of this, but it was very obviously very recent. She talks to Ash a little bit about figuring out what's going on, um, and I think that's essentially it. The next thing is that her going
the
to. Sorry, go ahead.
So there's a bit where on the way to visiting King Ideon, if that's the segue you're going into.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, Serene, Serene. I'm gonna say Serena. I'm sorry.
Say whatever you want.
Um, um, she conveys to Ash like this is very suspicious.
Hmm.
Like I'm gonna find out what's going on. Ash is like, oh no, your father told me that this would be a bad idea for you to get involved like this. Like
Yeah,
because this then sets the like a precedent of like Serena getting into too many things that she's like
yeah,
clearly way over her head in.
yeah.
Um,
She's a troublemaker,
she's a troublemaker. But
which is
then,
great. I love it.
yeah, I like her a lot.
Yeah,
But she's also there's a side of her that shows a bit of like sadness and loneliness because she gets like upset that like after all this time, a suitor for her who seemed pretty cool after like sending messages and stuff that he dies on her. She's like,
that's
oh,
right. Yeah, and
so,
it also mentions like that I think she like gets into trouble because she has some like inherent sort of anxiety and awkwardness about her, and she also they
mm,
mention about how she's like 25 and she's still not married, which I guess
yeah,
in this world is
it's
something that
too
should have
old
happened.
or
Yeah, it's
something.
too
Yeah.
old. Yeah. So this traveling scene is where we do get where the majority of the lore dump happens.
Mm,
So yeah, we learned Serene's been raised as a diplomat in court. Obviously, she's a princess. That kind of makes sense.
hmm.
Since the fall of Elantris, Arelon has been unofficially, quote unquote, quarantined from other kingdoms because people didn't know what the effects of the Sheod were and um, didn't want to risk being there and getting infected. Even though they are partially quarantined, though, she does note how vibrant the city of K is.
Yeah.
And this is when we learn a little bit about the class structure. So K is where the aristocracy is, but she knows that Arelon is going through economic hardship, which we kind of find out later is due to obviously the pressure from the Empire wanting to expand and take over this last country on this continent and then expand to Teod as well, or Teod. But K is still vibrant and it's the seat of wealth. So even though these people are living good, the peasants are most likely starving.
Yep.
So yeah, we get a little bit of a glimpse into the class structure here. This is also again where I noted that they mentioned the Elantris looming over the city. It does
Yeah.
that in every chapter. It's
And
just got that
it's
presence.
yeah, in every single chapter, no matter who looks at it, Elantris is a sign of doom.
Yes, exactly.
Like
Yeah, it's like a
it's
shadow just
yeah.
like hanging out there. Yeah. Um and they also talk a little bit about why K is where it is. So there
Hmm.
was 10 years ago was when Iadon, that's what I'm going to call him, the king, took power, and it was during turbulent times. Obviously something happened when that 10 years ago when something went wrong with the Sheod, something turbulent happened. This new king took power and he decided to settle his seat power in K. and it's strategically placed because it's where the river flows into the ocean, and it's this big sort of, I don't know if you would call it an inlet or something, but it's a strategic port, and it's one of the best ports on the north of the continent. So we learn that there's a reason why they're there, and it's not just because it's near Elantris. In fact, maybe they wouldn't have wanted it to be near Elantris at all. But it is just um, because of the strategic location. You gonna fix your light again? I see you looking back.
The sun keeps moving. I'm like, it's someone just.
I don't think it's the sun that's moving.
It is the sun that's moving.
It's the planet that's turning.
Oh, you know what? Fine, smarty pants.
Okay, well, while Alex fixes that, we'll continue on a little bit. Okay, you're back pretty quick. So yeah,
I could just move the sun out of the way. That's all I did.
No, yeah.
For you audio listeners, I have the power to do that.
Yeah. So Alex is in what is this room that you're in that you would call? It's like
it's a solarium.
Solarium, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's obviously a lot of windows, and right now the sun is setting. So every time it looks, every few minutes here, it looks like a Michael Bay movie with the lens flares in your webcam, and
for slow-mo and explosions.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah,
and my grandmother's drapes, clearly.
Yeah, for sure. I think they look great.
Yeah, they're okay.
Yeah. So yeah, more lore dumping happens. So we learn that the purpose of the wedding was to solidify a treaty between Arelon and Teod. Apparently both of these nations are on the brink, and they need to we don't learn what the terms of the agreement are, but they need each other. We learn that there's like a armada in Teod that is trying to hold off the Empire, but they're just not going to be able to do it for much longer. So maybe the armada or the army of Arelon can help. And that as long as Sarene stays in the city and is loyal to the king, the treaty remains intact. So she is like the crux of this whole thing. The bargaining chip,
I would say.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Fjorden, obviously being the Empire, is expanding their influence everywhere. So that's why both of these parties benefit. And this is where we get the next mention of Dulladen. The Dulladen Republic fell, and it changed a lot apparently in the world. And this is obviously where Galadon is from. We get another mention of Duladel as well in the 3rd chapter. So I feel like
that close to pop up a Star Wars reference.
Go ahead.
The Republic.
Oh, the Republic, the fall of the Republic. This is the fall of democracy.
You must bow down to their wishes. You must contact me. I'm sorry.
No, that's great. No, I love it. Man. I love Star Wars. That's what this artwork is behind me. Again, for you people who are listening, you can't see, but that artwork behind me, the first one, the purple one is Tatooine. Yeah, you got a Millennium Falcon. Ooh. I got a Tatooine, Cloud City, and Hoth.
Nice.
Back there.
Yeah, I got a bunch of lightsabers.
I got two lightsabers. Yeah, I got Mace Windu's lightsaber and Darth Revan's lightsaber. Anyways.
Damn. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah, that was quite the tangent. Just mention Star Wars and we just go on a tangent for like 10 minutes talking about Star Wars. Anyways, so yeah, the treaty, she's the crux of it.
Or I would say, I would argue, I don't know, it reminds me a lot of like the medieval kingdoms and how they make alliances as like they would marry their siblings to each other.
Yes,
like, okay, we won't attack each other.
Yeah, because we're related now. We're family.
Yeah, we're family.
Yeah, exactly.
Cody and Sarene.
Oh my god.
All right, but that's my understanding. It's like a peace brokerage.
Yes.
Yeah, but again, exactly, like we're not aware of the terms. It's just more like. But then again, like I feel in the end of the chapter, we'll get there. But I feel like the terms of the marriage are like pretty loosey goosey. And I'll explain why, but we'll continue on.
I'm curious to know that, but so there's a little bit more lore that we get here. So she does mention that the two empires, Teod and Arelon, should have had like a relationship sooner than this, like a better relationship. But Sarene's father was afraid to have a relationship with Arelon because there was so much political turmoil happening, especially 10 years ago. And he was afraid that political turmoil would infect And this is actually where we finally get the name of the
Mm.
event from 10 years ago. It's called the Raod, Reod.
Damn.
That is the name of the event. Again, don't get anything else other than the name, but that is the name of the event that happened 10 years ago. And that is what, caused the fall of Elantris and all of this uncertainty in the kingdom surrounding it in Arelon. And then in this last, right before she goes to see the king, they talk about how an inevitable war is coming. We
Mm.
don't really find out what this is until the third chapter, but essentially, she knows that the Fjorden Empire is going to make a final push to take over these two leftover countries. Um, and yeah, it's just a big sort of like cliffhanger, like this is coming. And again, we get the same sort of thing reiterated in Hrathen's chapter.
Yeah, it's literally, yeah. We'll get to that chapter in a bit.
Yeah. So she meets King Iadon, or Iadon, that's what I'm calling him. He's a thin man with a shrewd face. That's all I really got from it. I
Mhm.
didn't want to, so I'm very tempted to look up art for the characters, but I don't want to spoil anything. Like I don't, because some of these characters could go through some sort of transformation, and if you just type in the character name and look up artwork, you might see something that spoils it. So I don't really have a great
Mm.
idea of what these guys look like yet. So yeah, thin man with a shrewd face. That's all we know about King Iadon. He makes Sarene wait for a long time. I think he
Yeah.
says like he waits for 15 minutes before even making eye contact with her, and he does make eye contact and then just like nods or something. Obviously, while this king is like, he's holding court, so he's not mourning. So again, the suspicion is growing.
Mhm.
He's like very animated and pointing at maps and all this kind of stuff. But he does appear to be a man of strong character, and his actions are very like the way he speaks and the decisions he's making are very final and like they're very sounds like he's making important decisions very almost easily. Like he's a good leader, is
Mm.
what I got from this. And when he does finally talk to Sarene, he calls for Eshin. He's like, Eshin calls for her like he would call for a servant, but we find out that this is actually the queen,
Yeah.
which is actually interesting. And basically, he says like, "Go off with this with the queen and do whatever it is you women do."
Yeah,
Like he
it's
just
crazy.
completely dismisses her.
Oh, what was it? Like when Sarene like tries to introduce herself,
Yeah,
he's like, "I thought you were tall, shorter than this. Why are you so
yeah, he
tall?"
does.
Like he
Yeah, he
interrupts
mentioned.
her entirely. He's like, "Man, go away."
And like, oh
Like, what
yeah,
the
he
hell?
he interrupts her, and all of this like summoning Eshin and
Mm,
saying go do all the womanly stuff, it all happens while she's like mid curtsy. So like
yeah.
he acknowledges her, tells her something, and dismisses her all while she's like mid curtsy, which I thought was pretty funny, but also very telling
Yeah.
about the king. Like he's
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 an
a
asshole.
and that's probably why he's a
Yeah.
strong ruler, right? Like he's a little bit of a psychopath, like a lot of people who get to those sort of higher levels don't take into consideration other people's feelings very often because they have goals that they're trying to attain and they're just after it. Anyways, that was just my read.
Fair enough.
So the queen does take her away, and we learn that the queen talks a lot
He does
about
not stop talking.
essentially nothing. She's talking about roses and how she wants, or I think she wants orange roses, but the roses right now are yellow. And she like berated the gardeners, and she's like, "Oh, you should have seen the look on the gardeners' faces when I berated them." And yeah, essentially
They
her
try to
life is
talk
just.
about the prince, and then
Sorry, go ahead. I didn't hear that.
oh, sorry. It's like Serene, like this is like the point of view of Serene, where she's like,
Yeah.
"Wow, the queen just talks about everything and nothing."
Yeah,
She
exactly.
notices that like the queen does not talk about the son that passed away,
Yeah.
and when she points that out, or no, she doesn't point it out. It's like when the queen like brings her to her room. She's like, "Oh, you have to wear black 444," and then it's like, "Oh yeah, for mourning," and she's like,
Mm.
"Yes, that's right, for
That's
mourning."
right.
And
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, "Whoa."
Yeah, she didn't
So
even realize.
yeah, so when I reread it a few times, I took it as like something that she didn't really care of, but it might
Yeah,
just be that she's like uncomfortable discussing it. So
possibly.
I want to know your take on it.
So the other part of the puzzle that I think we're missing here is that we find out that Eshin is not Raoden's
Mm,
mother.
Yep.
She's the second wife, and I think the first wife, Raoden's mother, died.
Yes. 10
Yeah,
years ago,
ten,
coincidentally.
oh,
Wah,
interesting.
wah. I wonder.
Okay, that I see. I missed that part completely. Yeah, okay,
Ah,
that's a pretty big one. Yeah,
yep.
okay, that's cool.
Wink,
Uh,
wink. I mean, it is, when I read ahead, there was like no mention of who Rodian's mother is. But I'm like,
right.
10 years ago? What also happened 10 years ago?
Yeah, yeah,
Gosh, I wonder.
yeah. That's interesting. That's really
So,
cool.
anyway.
So yeah, Sarene is jumping to conclusions when she's talking to Ash.
Yeah.
So the queen leaves. She kind of actually pushes her out the door in mid sentence.
That's
Like she
right.
just closes the door in her face because she just won't stop talking, which is
Mm.
equal parts annoying and adorable, I thought. Um, and yeah, so she says when she starts jumping to conclusions is she thinks that someone might have killed the prince.
Yeah.
Um, so she's obviously going to be doing some investigating over the next few chapters.
Snooping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now Sarene wants to, I think Ash prompts her. She's like, you should talk to your father. Like, he needs to know what happened. We learn, so this is obviously the king of Teod. We learn that his name is Eventeo or Eventeo. And she tells him about the death. Earlier, when Sarene was talking to Ash, she thought that her father was going to like laugh when he heard about this. Like, like, of course this would happen to you. Of
Yeah.
course your husband would die before you got there. But he actually doesn't. He's
Mhm.
more sympathetic, and he's like, you can just come home. This is like, he feels really bad for her, which is obviously, he's a sign that he's like a pretty good father, I thought.
Yeah.
But she can't do that. She knows how important the treaty is,
Mhm.
so she decides to stay. There is also a mention here of the leader of the Fjorden Empire for the first time. His name is
Or
Rin or
Rin.
Wyrn. Is it
Ooh.
Wyrn or Wryn? I think it's
Uh,
Wyrn. I think you're right. I think
a
it's Wyrn.
simple check. We'll find out.
I've got, yeah, it's
Mm,
Wyrn. It's Wyrn. Yep.
you beat it to me. Okay.
Yep. Um, yeah, and yeah, so she's talking. We also learn a little bit about the communication device. So it presents like sorry, I'm stumbling over my words here. The ball of light, the Seon, transforms into a bust of the person that you're talking to, and it communicates some features but not all of them. And
Mm.
Sarene is happy about this because as she's talking, like she's reflecting on her situation, and she starts to cry, but she knows that her father won't be able to see it because the communication device doesn't have that sort of fidelity. It can't communicate that part of it. So yeah, another little sort of interesting tidbit. And
Mm.
then at the very end of the chapter, which I thought was funny, was where her father does joke, like he becomes fairly jovial, and he's like, "Well, I need to go tell your mother that you killed your husband already," and he walks away, and before she can even say anything, he's already gone to get her mother.
Yeah.
So
Classic dad teasing maneuver.
yeah, exactly. Dads are still dads, no matter where they
Dads are
are.
dads. They're like,
Yeah,
well, you scared another one off.
yeah,
To his
exactly.
dad. Uh,
So that's
so
where. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna wait till you were done because I want to talk about like how loose this treaty seems.
Yes. Okay.
Because
So let me just finish that off then.
yeah.
The very end of the that is the very end of the chapter.
Mm.
He's going off to grab her mother. Obviously, the conversation continued, but we don't get insight into that,
Yeah.
and that is where it ends. So yeah, you wanted to talk about the looseness of this treaty.
Yeah, like, and it's in contrast with King um Ideon.
Yeah,
Is it because
iodine. I was saying
Iodine?
iodine. Yeah.
I know King Iodine. Oh my god. I'm gonna say King Iodine for like one more time.
It's
Flip it.
all right.
So like the contrast of personalities, but then again, like King Aventeo is talking to his daughter. So
Hmm.
maybe if King Iodon spoke with his son, you could see the same thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
with that aside, we're just looking at, or I'm just interested to know, or I want to talk about more King Aventeo talking to his daughter in terms of like, oh yeah, you could just come home. I'll just tear up this treaty, no big deal. But also in the same vein, talking about like, oh yeah, we're fucked either way if we don't have anything with Arelon.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like, how like worse off are you then with this,
So
or is this?
it's
It's
kind
I
of
don't know,
drawing a contrast between the two rulers, right?
a little
One
bit. That's
is
kind of my suspicions.
yeah,
Yeah.
one is seems to be a little bit more loosey goosey, but obviously more empathetic and sympathetic to probably the plight of his people. Again, also when Sarene notices like the lushness of Kay, I imagine the capital of Teod is probably not as lush because the ruler, again, is a little more sympathetic for his people. So
Mm,
he's could, and again, I'm spitballing here, but he could be, spreading the wealth a little bit better.
yes.
But it also shows that he might not be the strongest of hands when it comes to ruling. Like Iadon, obviously, he came to power 10 years
Mhm.
ago. So he must have some sort of strength to him to be able to be the person who took power when there was some sort of vacuum that happened 10 years ago when Elantris fell. So yeah, there's a lot of sort of that we're trying to, piece
Suss out,
together about these
piece
two
together. Yeah.
characters and how they work together. And yeah, it's pretty interesting so far. So you mentioned last episode, which I actually, so we again have the podcast in video and audio form. So for people who didn't watch, I don't think we mentioned the book that we're reading in our book club.
Oh,
You just
well,
showed it
we
on
mentioned it.
camera, but I don't think we mentioned
Oh.
it by name, which is Malice by John Gwynn.
Mhm.
And that book is, from what I've read, actually, is a notoriously slow burn. But I don't feel like the character building and the kind of speculation. I don't feel like we could do that in that book like we're doing here. Like there's a lot of like depth even though we've only read 2 chapters and we've read 2 chapters. We've been talking for an hour already
Yeah.
about like the different motivations and all of this stuff. So it just kind of shows like I think the strength of Brandon Sanderson as an author. Like
Yeah.
he's really good at building these characters in these worlds.
With yeah, with John Wynne, I guess we're comparing the two. It feels like a young adult novel where it's just like a lot of fluff and looking at
Mm,
like a younger audience's take on, their parents doing the
hmm.
bigger, decisions
Yeah.
behind the scene.
Hmm.
Whereas in Elantris, it's more like, oh, they're thrown into those decisions and they have to carry some of that responsibility with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Some of that
so they,
is the perspectives, obviously, and
Mhm.
in that book in Malice by John Gwynn, the first I think it's the first book of the first of the something the Faithful and the Fallen series. Anyways, the perspective is from
Yep, it is.
a kid.
Yeah. Mhm.
One of the main characters, Corbin, is from a kid. So yeah, we are sort of like sheltered. Anyways, we're getting completely on a tangent here. We're talking about the wrong book.
What was the tangent? Why did you start it? Were you just
Oh, I
saying
was
that like,
comparing the two
oh, okay,
authors and just the
okay.
fact that like we're able to speculate this much about these two
Mhm.
guys or the two kings like we're doing right now or Sarene and soon Hrathen. We're
Mhm.
able to get so much out of only a few chapters.
Mm.
I really like it. Yeah, it's one of the things I like the most about Brandon Sanderson as an author. Anyway,
I'm
so
curious
chapter
so far.
3.
Yeah.
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 Chapter 3 is
Oh
the
boy.
third of the main characters. Hrathen,
Yes.
spelled with an H. Hrathen.
H is
Uh,
silent
yes.
as nobody. I don't know. This is my take on it.
Yeah. I think it actually is in the pronunciation guide. And
Oh
it's,
well. Oh,
where is it?
you got it up
Yeah.
fast. Okay.
It's Raven with a
Like
very subtle H sound at the beginning. So Raven. Hrathen.
Craven.
Hrathen.
Raven.
No. I'll link the
Oh man,
pronunciation guide
Raven.
in the show notes as well.
Oh
And you can
dear.
see
Sorry, dear
Hrathen.
listeners,
It's fine.
for your co-hosts are butchering everything you love dearly.
Get used to it. This is going to happen a lot.
Oh boy. It will. It will. So
Yeah.
King Iodine spoke with Copper,
Yeah. King Iodine spoke with Sarene.
and then
Anyways,
Wern showed up.
yeah.
And yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, this chapter is Hrathen. This is the last one that we read, and my notes are a little bit shorter for this one.
Yep. Same.
Um, so yeah, we don't really know at the beginning, but he does appear to be a religious figure of some kind. Obviously, we find out later he's a priest.
One of
Um,
the main six, from what I recall.
oh, really? Okay, that's
Yeah.
cool. So he's on a mission to Arelon. And so at the beginning of the chapter, he mentions that he's the savior of Arelon. We don't find out until the end why he's calling himself the savior, which is actually
Mhm.
pretty interesting when that reveal happens. And the religion, which is the other religion, there's what is it? Karathi is the religion of Arelon and Teod,
Yeah.
and of the Fjorden Empire, the religion is called Durethi.
Yes.
And they have their lord, I think, is Holy Jadith, something like that, Lord of Creation. I can't remember exactly what it was.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Jadeth
this is sorry,
is
sorry.
Jaddeth.
Yeah, Jadith.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so he arrives in K. So now Sarene and Hrathen are in K, and Raoden is in Elantris, which is right next to K. So they're all very close to each other, which is cool. A
Mhm.
lot of the times, again, in fantasy books, these characters are like all over the place and they kind of come together at the end. And even in some of Sanderson's other books, that does happen. But I liked how all of these characters are together. I think it builds the scope of the story is a little bit smaller when that happens, but I
Mhm.
do like that they're all together and they probably will get to interact. I think that's
Mm.
cool. So yeah,
I mean,
again,
spoilers, 2 of them do in the next chapter. Wah, wah.
just spoiled it for me and everyone listening, man.
I didn't say who.
I'm just kidding. We knew they were going to come together at some point.
Mm,
So this is also, I noted again for the third time, where the mention of the city of Elantris looming over him.
yeah.
So it's just there constantly.
It might as well be its own character at this point.
It is a character. Yeah, I think it's a character
Husk
in
of what
this.
it used to be,
Yeah,
and like a
yeah,
shame to I want to say the rest of the world because it seemed like a shining beacon
it was.
of like
Yeah.
learned high society of like you said godlike proportions, and now
Yeah.
it's just a disappointment or shame.
Yeah. Something
Yeah.
happened. So yeah, then they do mention that in the past, 4 small cities surrounded Elantris. It wasn't just K. But
Hmm.
after the Rayod, something happened, and K is well, yeah, we still don't know what happened, but and K is the only one that's left.
Hmm.
He talks about a little bit how like K is in a very defensible city. Obviously, coming from the Empire, he's thinking about how an invasion would go. So I think he mentions even like people could take cover in these buildings as they move towards Elantris. If the people of K decided to try and take shelter into Elantris, it would be easy for them to gain ground to get towards Elantris to take over. We do also get a name drop of the continent that they're on. It's called Syclan, Syclan. I again don't know if I'm pronouncing that properly. Um, it was
Sikla,
Cyclin, maybe,
Sikla?
but
Yeah.
it's actually got a different name. The people of Arelon call it Opelon, Opelon.
Mm,
So yeah, it's one of those. You know, the people in their language have a different name for it than those of the Empire, obviously.
yeah.
So yeah, Arelon and Teod are the only two that have not come under the dominion of the Fjordell Empire. Um, and as he gets off the ship, people are staring at him, like conversations stop when he walks through, and it's I think because of his armor that he's wearing. Apparently, it's like this blood red armor with this cape, and it kind of glitters in the sun. And it's got all these like sharp sort of peaks on it.
Hmm.
Again, I was afraid to look up a picture of this, so I didn't. But that's just sort of what I got from it. And Red seems to
Don't have to
also.
spoil too much because he's on the front cover.
Oh, is he?
Yeah,
Oh, that's him. Okay, I didn't
that's
know that.
him.
Cool.
It,
And yeah, so red seems to be the color of the religion because they mention like this sort of red dot coming through the crowd towards him,
yeah.
and that is Fionn, who is another priest, which the name is Arteth. The priests of the Durethi religion are called Arteths,
Mm,
and Fionn is the head Arteth of the monastery, I guess, in K. So they have for the Durethi religion, even though Arelon is of a different religion, they have a church
mm.
there, and it's been Fionn's task to try to convert as many people to the religion of the Empire, probably to make it easier to take over. That's kind of what I get from this whole chapter. Is that's the reason why they're doing it?
Yeah, the
Yeah,
explains later on of like join us or die kind of thing.
essentially,
And
that
so
that really sums up Rothen's orders. That's essentially
that's
what it
literally
is.
yeah. So like Hrathen's whole mentality is like I better save these people because well I don't think he does it out of like sympathy of like, oh, I'm gonna save these people's lives or else they'll be killed. It's more like they're better off joining us anyway than being dead. So
It's
yeah,
also probably for his, like, benefit, for his
his
promotion.
own
Like, when
MO.
you think about the Empire, like, the Empire in Star Wars, again, to make a
Yeah,
Star Wars reference, these guys are always out for themselves, right? They wanna move
are
up.
these the Moffs?
Yeah, like, they're yeah, like Moffs. They wanna become a Moff or a Grand Admiral or,
Hmm.
something like that. So similar, that's, again, just my read of it, but I could be wrong, but
I
yeah.
think so. He's just Hrathen is just so devoted to like his religion and the
Yes.
Empire and Wern
Yeah.
that I don't think he really cares about his stature. He's just like, this is the way. Again, Star Wars reference. Um, and like it's our way or die,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
so it's a bit of like a bit of a strategy as well, where he like it's better off to have people dedicated to the cause and stay and be added to the empire than be absolutely swept away and move people in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I
so I
agree.
think that's going to be revealed later on, but like that's my thoughts of Horathen's whole um, not persona is not the right term, objective,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just a zealot. Or not a zealot, because then he meets Dilaf, who is an absolute zealot.
Yes. So that
Yes.
comes up soon. So yeah, he gets to the chapel,
Hmm.
which is also bright red and has spires, kind of like his armor, which
Wow,
is
I wonder if it's an evil sign.
really. Are we the baddies?
Are we the are we the baddies?
Yeah.
We have
So
skulls on our shirts.
yeah,
Oh dear.
skulls and everything is colored red like blood. Are we the bad guys?
Two sharp pointy things. Hmm.
So yeah, this is a holy place, and when Rothan gets there, he's a little put off because a lot of the
Mm.
other Arteths in there are being jovial and talking and not showing
Non-native.
reverence. Yeah, there's a few
Yeah.
non-natives too. They're just not showing reverence for the religion. It's a holy place, so he's a little
Mm.
bit, off put by that. So he does
Mm.
confront Fionn about it. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Maybe I shouldn't say God native because that's not appropriate. They've
Mm,
been domesticated
yes, yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, you're
to
right.
Kay and Arelon. So
Yes.
apologies. Should
Nope.
be. Yeah.
It's all good. So he confronts Fionn about it, sort of, taking him to task.
Mm.
And when Fionn starts to reply, he replies in the language of Arelon, and we learn that there are different languages. And we actually learn the name of the language of the Fjordell Empire, which is, I might get this wrong, Aonic, Aonic.
Yeah,
Um,
that's how I read it
yeah,
in my
that's how I
mind. And
read it too. So they switch languages and they
I'll
start.
pull up the pronunciation, see if it's here as well.
I don't know if it's in there. So they switch languages and start talking. We get a mention of, again, the leader Wern, of
Mm.
the he's- like he's obviously their superior. We don't, I think, know at this point that he is like the emperor. Um, but Fionn hasn't been doing a great job, and
Or his job period, from what we could tell.
essentially, and that's what
Yeah.
Rothan's conclusion is. So that's why he tells him, the boat that I just came on and got dropped off here, you're getting on that boat and you're going back to Fjordell. I'm going to stay here and take over.
Mm.
Um, Fionn is, very
Sad.
upset, obviously sad. He likes what he does. He tries to repent a bit to Rothan.
A bit of
So
groveling. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
there's some groveling. So Rothan goes and takes over Fionn's office, cleans it out a bit. Fionn comes later and tries to apologize, and like he's like, "Can I repent? Like, will I ever be able to, get back to the standing that I had? Will I ever be able to sort of recover from this?" And he's like, "Yeah, you will. Like, go back home, repent, and one day you might be able to lead a monastery again in the
Mm.
homeland." Fionn's a little bit happier about this. Um, and he kind of just, that's the end of their sort of, Fionn knows
Mm.
that it's kind of final at this point.
He does something. Fionn is like, or I don't know if it's like.
Oh, you're
So
right.
Hrathen shows Fionn the
The
letter that weren't,
orders.
yeah, the orders,
Yes.
and Fionn is like, "Oh my god, from the Emperor himself." He's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
exactly.
And he reads it like
Um,
a couple times.
yeah, like he lets him read it a couple times.
Mhm.
Like he opens it and Fionn reads. He's like, "Oh my god, it's the blessing," and so like gives Fionn the confidence of that what he's doing is holy and just and all that jazz.
Yep.
What's a little fun is that Hrathen had two letters. One was this guy's coming back and he needs to be like
That's right.
assimilate into the religion,
Mm-hmm.
or two is like kill him.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
that's
so
right.
yeah, he like I love it so good because Hrathen's like looking at the letter which is to kill him, which he doesn't give to Fionn, so Fionn's going back home safe and sound.
Mm-hmm.
And he's looking at it, he's like, and then like the description is like through the words of the reflection, or no, through like the light of the candle or something like that. It reads that Fionn would have had like a death worse than
Yeah,
faith or something like
that
that.
was really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
super
and then
neat.
I
Yeah,
think he burns the letter, right? He burns the second one.
that was my intention because he's holding it to the candle,
Yeah, he
and you
holds it
get
to the
like,
candle flame.
and then Sanderson like as I don't know, he's not. He's just, there's no third omniscient being saying like, and so Hrathen did this. It's more like a description of the letters appeared saying that, you know, it was the identical letter and stamp, but the contents were different to
Yes.
say that killed this traitor,
Mm-hmm.
literally.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he burns it. So yeah, I forgot about that. That is a really cool part. So later on, Hrathen is meeting with all of the Arteths one at a time to kind of evaluate them, and this is when we meet a true zealot.
Oh
I
yeah.
think it's Dilaf. Let me see. It's Dilof. Wow.
Oh god, D-Lof. Sanderson, if you're listening, why? Oh my
So
god.
Dilof. So the few things that stand out about him: he's a zealot.
Mm-hmm.
He is not from Fjordell. He is from
Yeah.
Arelon. So that is an interesting one. We try to get the story of how he became an Arteth. So he met an Arteth, and this is the third time that this place comes up, in Duladel.
Yeah.
So obviously he's one of the few that was over there. So Galadon again says that the people of Duladel are from
Mixed race.
Arlon, Teod, and I think Fjordell,
Oh,
or maybe
great.
somewhere else. But like it's three places. It's a
It's
place of
really
mixed
fun.
people.
Yeah. Mhm.
So the Arteth that he met in Duladel gave him two copies. We learned the names of two holy books. It's the Do Kando or Do Kando
Mhm.
and Do Dareth. He
Yes.
read both of those books in one night. He set up eventually he came back to Arlon and he
Mhm.
set up his own sort of monastery in a small town called Nayan. And when he learned that there was a chapel in
Okay.
K,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to see if that is on the map anywhere, that town. I don't see it anywhere.
Insignificant.
Insignificant small town, I guess.
Pebbles. Whoa. Chant beyond my charts.
So he heard that there was a chapel in K, and that's when he moved there with his sort of flock and
Yeah.
brought some people with him.
Mm.
There is a mention that someone at the level of an Arteth can't like promote another person to the level of Arteth, so he is not actually a
Not
full-fledged
officially.
one.
Yeah.
But Hrathen is like a high Arteth. He's a high priest, so he can do that,
Such
and he
official name.
does after he asks him a question like, "What did you think of Fionn's methods?" And Dilaf is honest with
Still
him. Dilof. He's honest with him and says, "I think he's a fool. Like his methods were terrible."
He got soft is like one of the things because the
Yes.
descriptions, like when Fionn, I have to go back to my notes, make sure I get that. Oh my goodness, notes, please. Oh, get a different tab. What the heck? Yeah, Fionn. Because when Fionn went to go greet Hrathen,
Yeah.
Hrathen was expecting like a whole proceeding, people parting ways to like greet their,
Mm-hmm.
someone of higher stature in the
Yeah.
Darathi priesthood. But no, he's just like disappointed to see like Fionn just stumbling his way through people who were like ignoring him.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So
right.
like his take is like Fionn wasn't strong-willed enough to convert anyone over to their faith, right? And so he got assimilated into the Arelon culture more so.
Yeah.
And I
So
think
it's almost the opposite of what his
yes,
job was to do, right?
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
And so we get a glimpse of like Hrathen disapproving more of Fionn's methods when he moves into Fionn's office, where like he makes it as Spartan as possible.
Yeah. Gets rid of the artwork, all that other stuff. Yeah.
I think he keeps one of them.
He might.
Don't remember what it was.
Not sure either.
Yeah.
So yeah, he does. Hrathen notes like all of Dilof's religious fervor, and talks about how he could be dangerous. So this is when he kind of makes a decision. He's like, okay, I'm going to promote you because I am a high Arteth, I'm going to promote, or whatever the name is, I'm going to
Mhm.
promote you to be a full Arteth, and I'm going to make you essentially my apprentice, but he calls it a slave. The name is Odiv, Odiv, and the relationship. So what Hrathen is in this is Gjorn. So that is the
Yes.
master, the Gyorn, Gjorn, and the apprentice or the slave in this case is an Odiv. So that is the relationship now between Hrathen and Dilaf. Dilaf is obviously like, oh my god, this is amazing. Thank
Mhm.
you. I'm so happy to finally be serving.
He's a fool.
Sorry?
Dilop's a fool because Hrathen is using it to control him
Right. I
because
mean,
he's
Dilaf
dangerous.
could end up being smarter than, in
I wouldn't
here's
say smarter. I would say like brash would jump to his like to he wouldn't like think about his actions.
right. So I think this is going to be the 10th time that we reference Star Wars, but this is the master and apprentice, right? And in Star Wars, in
He will
this
find you in hot
relationship,
shit.
the the um the apprentice always his goal is to kill the master and become the master. That is the rule of two. But again, this isn't Star Wars.
This isn't Star Wars.
So, but
I,
my whole point is that we shouldn't
mm,
write off Dilaf. I think he could end up being smarter than we're giving him credit for right now.
yeah, I'm not saying he's stupid. I'm just saying he wants to impress Hrathen,
Yes,
and he's going to make decisions on his own accord, assuming Hrathen is going to support it.
that's
And
right.
so that's kind of my thing. Like, I
Hmm.
think Dilop is going to make a few mistakes thinking he did the right thing, and then Hrathen's like, "Oh God, you idiot! I told you
Yeah,
or whatever not to do this, and you did it anyway."
yeah. So this is when Rothan gives Dilaf his first orders, which
Mhm.
are to follow Fionn and make sure he gets on the boat. And if he doesn't
Yep.
get on the boat, then kill him.
Kill him.
Yeah. So we learn a little bit about how ruthless Rothan is
Oh yeah.
and to get his goal. And this is finally when we learn what his orders are. These coveted orders that were written in the hand of the emperor himself.
Mhm.
So the essentially what it boils down to is convert all of the people of Arelon and Teod in 3 months, or everyone's gonna die. I thought that was kind of weird. I don't know why the Empire would want to kill everyone. Like, these people are obviously resources when it comes to like country management, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I
For the
thought it was a
people
little
who
weird.
work the system, it's really odd.
Yeah,
And so my I think that maybe like Warren has like a death. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. My thought is like he has like the power to destroy everything, no matter what, and start new. Like maybe he
yeah,
has like a new plans or new ways of doing things.
yeah.
But if you're smart about it, then you'd be like, oh, you're under my control now as a province of the empire, and you're gonna report to Hrathen, who's gonna oversee all your dealings. But do as you do,
Mm,
and this
yeah,
is your new religion now. Deal with it.
right.
Yeah.
Just like a really strong hand just taking over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like it's weird to be like face destruction or join our religion in 3 months. And also that's like a lot to do in 3 months. Like
That is
how
a
is Hrathen
lot.
gonna do
Yeah.
that?
In
Yeah.
3 months, that is a big undertaking. Uh,
So yeah, I think Hrathen's gonna be well, and I'm not gonna spoil anything, but he like immediately sets to work the next day.
I would think so. You would
Yeah.
have to if you only have three
Mhm.
months. And this is also so now it's kind of come full circle in this chapter that he came off of the boat calling himself the savior of Arelon, and now we know why. Because he is going to be the savior of Arelon. At least if the Empire's plans go as they expect them to go,
Mhm.
then he will be the savior. He will save all of the people from uncertain destruction or certain destruction, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah, and that
The
is the end.
Empire, the rule of two, wearing lots of red.
I know, right? He's
Sanderson,
got some
taking a page
inspiration
out of
from
Lucas's
somewhere.
book.
uh,
Religious orders. Oh, coming in.
so yeah, closing thoughts. What did you think so far of these three chapters?
Good. I like them a lot. As we conveyed, especially when we were talking about this book versus I'm gonna have them brother right here. Sanderson versus John Gwynn's.
Yeah.
Um, Sanderson just like makes it intentional of what to do, and the actions are clear. But he doesn't like prolong or like put too much of a fluff around it. It's just
Hmm.
like very deliberate. Next stage.
Yeah, he just
next
kind of
scene, I would say.
dumps you right in there, right? Like
Hmm.
it's you're at this point where there's some major events happening in the world and you're just dumped into the middle of it and
Mm.
we just go from there, which is I love that kind of writing. So I'm really enjoying it so far. It reads like most Sanderson stuff to me. It
Mm.
doesn't read any worse than any of their stuff, though. I've only read the first 3 chapters of this, but I don't think that it's going to be better than Mistborn or Stormlight,
You know what I'm gonna say?
just in terms of
Best
story.
Sanderson book I've ever read.
No,
Point.
easy,
Full stop. Easy.
easy. We'll see. We'll see
Easy.
if something else
One
can
of one.
dethrone it. Yeah.
Oh, I will never know. I guess we'll find out.
So yeah, that is the first 3 chapters of Elantris.
Oh boy.
This has been a longer episode for sure, longer than the last one that we did, which was only 15 minutes. We'll be reading
Wow.
the next 3 chapters,
Mhm.
chapters 4, 5, and 6, and have an episode up next week. And I guess that's it. I mean, I'm looking forward to where it's going. I'm really enjoying this book so far, but I'm also really looking forward, honestly, to us getting to other stuff. I'm
Mm.
really interested to see what you think of Mistborn. That is one of my favorites. But yeah, let's enjoy Elantris and see where we go with this one.
Savor it.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, we will be savoring it. Only reading 3 chapters a week. It's going to take us a while.
Oh man, and talking about it for so long too.
I know, and it does take a while to put together notes and stuff. So I think 3 chapters is going to be a pretty good cadence for this book.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, with that, we should cut it off because you're getting another Michael Bay lens flare. Thanks for everyone who stuck around this long to listen. We will be back next week with the next 3 chapters of Elantris.
Yeah. See
Okay.
y'all and hear y'all. Wait, do we hear them?
We need
You
like
know what?
a line to end the podcast with, like, and
And that's
that's
another
another
one
one
for
for the
the
books.
books.
Oh my god.
Oh, that's so bad. That's
Yeah,
awful.
I can't do it. I can't do
Oh
it.
god. Maybe we should like add it in there like a drop, like, and that's another one for the books. So you know.
And then it needs like that little like sort of jingle at the end, like a 90s sitcom.
The little laugh track.
Yeah.
Oh no. This bit's
Okay.
gonna stay in, I bet. This bit's gonna be in the beginning, so you really hook in the viewers and audience and listeners. Shaking your head? What?
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye.